What's up guys, Lifting here. When I was originally approached by Wargaming for sponsorship, I was initially reluctant. I rarely do sponsored content for lots of reasons. However, once I took a proper look at Pagan Online, I knew there was something to talk about at least. As Pagan Online does things very differently than your typical ARPG, and some of those differences could be good to talk about, as they could potentially be good for the ARPG genre overall. Also, I hope it goes without saying, but despite this being a sponsored video, my thoughts and the way I present them in this video are my own. I'm not being paid to say anything I don't want to. Pagan Online is currently in early development, but can be accessed for around $30 on Steam, and you can find a link to it below in the description. My goal of this video is to try and give you an idea of what Pagan Online is and what it does well and what it doesn't do so well. So let's jump right into it. First of all, Pagan Online is a buy-to-play title, and there is at least not in its current state any microtransactions, or even more important, no pay-to-win elements. And neither will there be, at least according to the publisher whom I asked this question directly. So that's obviously great, right? However, I do get the impression that the game was originally designed around a free-to-play model, as there are certain aspects and gameplay elements that strongly gives off that vibe. However, that isn't important for now, I guess. Let's instead jump into what Pagan Online actually is. Pagan Online is a hack and slash ARPG with an emphasis on the hack and slash aspects. Instead of the traditional point and click controls that we see in the majority of ARPG games, you instead control your character's movement via WASD on your keyboard. The character's abilities are bound to whatever keys you prefer, but is by standard set to mouse button 1, 2 and 3, with the remaining abilities allocated to your keyboard, and you control the direction your character faces with your mouse. If any of you watch my stream, you might have heard me talk about in recent times how I feel the ARPG genre have gotten a bit stale, and that there is too much focus on the grind or the loot alone, rather than also presenting the player with fun, engaging and challenging combat. This is a thought that Mad Hat Games, the developers of Pagan Online, also share, and the WASD system is their attempt to try and solve that. By utilizing this, it allows the players to react quicker and more precisely to threats on the battlefield. This is important, as this in turn grants the developers the freedom to design more sophisticated and challenging content, where success of the battle more comes down to player skill rather than just how well geared your character is. Now, this is just a design philosophy, and the real question is, how well does it work in practicality in Pagan Online? From the time I've spent in the game, I've grown to like it, and it was very easy to adapt to. Speaking specifically of the combat mechanics, I can easily say that Pagan's system is by far more fun and engaging than what any other ARPGs currently offer. While the challenge isn't apparent until you get a few hours into the game, it does really pick up later on, and you can't expect to be watching TV on one monitor and progressing the campaign on the other at the same time. Once you start to encounter some of the bosses later in the game, you will be faced with a challenge that demands your attention. You'll be faced with content that requires you to react quickly and position yourself correctly. You'll have to properly time your abilities to optimize your damage output or to avoid certain threats. You'll have to know when to stun and which of your skills that synergize, for then to combine them to get the most optimal outcome out of your situation. For example, the Berserker I'm playing currently can shoot his Kubura, which then applies a slow effect to whatever it hits. I can use that defensively to create some distance between me and the enemies, but I can also use it offensively and pair it up with the Whirlwind ability, which deals 100% more damage against slowed enemies. If I'm taking too much damage, I can use my dash ability to create some distance between me and the enemies too. If I then want to re-engage with the enemy, I can use my stomp ability, which probably should have been labeled leap to be honest, to leap back into and stunning whatever enemy it is that I'm currently facing. To finish off, I can use my execution ability to deal a massive amount of damage, with the added benefit of killing any monster below 50% health, unless it's a boss. However, I can't just use these skills freely. All of these skills are sustained via Fury. And to ensure I have enough, I need to either use my Power Slam ability, or alternatively, simply getting some regular hits in via my Furious Strikes ability. To add to the difficulty and incentivize playing efficiently, your character can also only hold 9 health flasks, and if you run out during a mission, then you either have to hope for a bit of luck and have the enemies drop some additional ones, or simply make do with what you have and get good. The limited amount of flasks and the fact that you can't port out and get to safety during a boss fight actually makes up for some really fun encounters, where you have to consider every move you make because you can't afford to lose more health, but you of course still need to finish the fight right. And this is where you really feel that it is the player's skill that matters, and you aren't just being carried by having insane gear, for instance. So let's take a look at the kind of content that Pagan currently offers. Like, what do you do in the game? Well, you first of all start by picking a class, and once you've decided on the class, you're then taken into a short tutorial. Once you've completed that, you'll find yourself in an area called the Pantheon. From here you can access something called the Battle Gate, which is where you can choose between which type of content you wish to do. To begin with, only the campaign missions will be available to you, but as you progress further into the game you will unlock access to missions and assassinations. These are different game modes that provide different rewards. The campaign is your traditional story-driven content and what provides context for everything else you do in the game. The missions consist of various game modes, such as having to defend a certain object from continually spawning monsters. You can also be sent on patrols where you have to secure different outposts, or you can be faced with the challenge of having to survive for a certain time duration, all while monsters keep coming at you. By completing the missions, you are awarded with materials, gold, and recipes that can be used for crafting gear and upgrading your abilities. Once you've completed a campaign or a mission, you're then taken back to the Pantheon where you can choose the next mission you wish to do. Then there's also the assassination missions, which serves to provide an efficient way of farming hero shards. To be able to participate in the assassination missions, you need to have certain keys that you find throughout the game, or fragments for these keys, and once you have that, you can access the assassination mission. And it is via the assassination missions you'll be able to farm hero shards. These are used to unlock additional hero classes for you to play with. And as I said earlier, in Pagan Online you start with the choice of 3 classes. Kingowich, I think it's pronounced, a strength-based melee berserker, which is the one that I have been playing. Anya, a ranged intelligence-based class, and Istok, a melee-based strength tank class. Each have their own unique trait, exclusive abilities, and playstyle, not to mention they can use different types of gear. At its core design, your goal besides doing the story content is to unlock further heroes and learn how to play these. Your character starts out at level 1 and can reach a max level of 30. However, once you reach max level, you start to unlock legacy levels. Legacy levels allow the hero to further advance their power by enabling to wear higher tiers of gear. In terms of gear, your character can equip 2 amulets, 2 rings, a tome, a ward, a talisman, and 1 weapon. The items are obtained via drops from enemies, but is also to a great extent obtained and improved via crafting. For instance, you will often find recipes during your missions. These typically offer a specific range of attributes and can then be paired with one of your items to upgrade it and increase its power. And you will of course want to use the recipes that has the relevant attributes to the type of build you're playing. This way you can ensure that you're efficiently scaling the relevant stats such as evasion or armor, elemental resistances, crit chance, attack speed, and so forth. The itemization system is rather simplistic in nature, but it is also entirely in line with the developer's design philosophy, where challenge via combat and skill is more important than complex item design. The same holds true to how upgrading hero abilities is done. Here you can, at the cost of various resources and potency points, improve the skills of your class. At respectively 5 and 12 points spent, you get to choose between 1 and 2 options, such as either going for increased area of effect or lowering the resource cost of the whirlwind ability in this example. Choosing one excludes the other, and each different ability have different upgrades. And I think it's great that there are choices and that you can upgrade your abilities. It's always fun to be able to invest more into your character. However, the choices are, in my opinion, somewhat uncreative and not very exciting. and could, in my humble opinion, greatly benefit from having added an additional 2 to 3 tiers of exclusive choices instead of just the 2 that are currently available for each skill. Us players like making meaningful choices for our characters. It makes us feel more invested in our hero, and allowing us to test out different skill variants can be a lot of fun, but in order to do so, there needs to be more of a distinguishable difference between the upgrades, or otherwise it won't make any difference. So this could definitely use a little more depth added to it. In between the campaign and missions, you'll spend most of your time at the Pantheon. This place serves as a hub for anyone currently online. Here you can see other players running around, you can chat with them, you can sell and or upgrade items, you can improve your abilities, unlock additional heroes, change the look of your hero, and select your next mission. An interesting aspect to the mission system is also that there is a leaderboard where you can compare your own character's gear level against others and how well you comparatively performed during the mission. By chaining kills, finishing extra challenges during the mission, and increasing the difficulty, you are awarded with higher amounts of glory points, which takes you further up on the ladder. I'm not entirely sure if this has any practical implications to your gameplay, or if it is merely there for fun and to incentivize a bit of competition between players, which can be a good thing, but the game would probably benefit from explaining how the system works a little better. I also found the story relatively well presented, at least by ARPG standards, and despite thinking to myself that the writing could have been better in some cases, the fully voice-acted NPCs and the way of presenting the story does manage to create a flow of engaging content that drives progression in a meaningful context for the gameplay.
Welcome, mortal, to my temple. Is it not beautiful? We are the serpent that eats its tail, the herald of the shroud, the antidote to the poison of your gods.
The game revolves around Slavic mythology, and I actually enjoyed learning about that as I was playing. However, there is no doubt that it is the different approach to combat and the focus on player skill that is the strongest aspect of Pagan Online. Sitting at the edge of the seat at the end of a mission, just barely making it and knowing it was due to your level of skill rather than just your loot, is in big part what makes the game feel rewarding and what makes you want to keep playing despite the lack of, in my opinion, proper itemization and character developing mechanics. While I agree that ARPGs in general could benefit from having more of a focus on creating fun and challenging combat, I think the game sacrifices a little too much in terms of depth and complexity. A big part of the fun in ARPGs, in my opinion at least, is analyzing your gear and build and trying out different setups in the hope of getting a better outcome. However, due to the limited amount of choices the player have, or due to the fact that the skill upgrades aren't that impactful, this isn't really possible in Pagan Online, or at least it's not something I have experienced thus far. I'm not sure if this is something the developers intend to keep as it is, or if it is a result of the game being in early access. And in all fairness, it is entirely possible that the gear and item system gets more interesting and complex further into the game. Overall speaking, I have enjoyed playing Pagan Online. It has been a fresh breath of air, and I hope the game will see success for its own sake, but also because it does something different, and I believe some of those design philosophies could help further the advancement of the ARPG genre. With a bit more complexity to the character development and itemization, I could see myself playing and having good fun with this. And those were my early impressions of the early release Pagan Online. As of now, you can only play it as a single player game with the addition of seeing and chatting with other players and leaderboards, but a co-op multiplayer feature is soon to be added to the game, and there are lots of features still in development. Check out the link below to find it on Steam in case you're interested. Also, I'd love to hear what your impression of the game is yourself. Please let me know in the comments, I'll read them all. I will personally be keeping an eye on the game and possibly revisiting it when it gets closer to release. Thank you for watching, and bros, do you even nerd?